The rope burned through Zara Nolan's palms as she hauled another fence post into position. The June sun of 1882 beating down on her back like a hammer against an anvil. She had buried her father 3 months ago, and the ranch outside Watsonville, California, had become both her inheritance and her prison. 200 acres of stubborn land that demanded everything she had and then asked for more. She drove the post into the dry earth with fierce determination, her dark hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. The cattle needed new grazing areas before the summer heat turned the eastern pastures to dust. Her hands were raw and blistered. Her shoulders ached with a persistent fire that never quite went away anymore, and she could not remember the last time she had eaten a meal sitting down instead of standing over the stove, already thinking about the next task. The sound of hoofbeats made her look up, squinting against the glare. A rider approached slowly, respectfully, giving her time to see him coming. He sat easy in the saddle, a tall man with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that touched his collar. He wore working clothes, not the fancy getup of a gambler or the hard leather of an outlaw. His horse was a sturdy bay gelding, well cared for but showing the dust of long travel. Zara straightened, reaching instinctively for the rifle she kept propped against the fence rail. She did not point it at him, but she wanted him to know it was there. A woman alone learned to be cautious. He stopped a respectful distance away and touched the brim of his hat. "Madam, name's Xavier Barrett. I'm looking for work, and I heard in town you might need a hand." She studied him carefully. He was perhaps 25 or 26, close to her own 23 years. His eyes were a clear gray, steady and honest-looking, though she knew appearances could deceive. His hands on the reins were capable, scarred with old rope burns and the nicks that came from real labor. "Who told you that?" she asked, her voice rough from disuse. She spoke so rarely these days, only to herself and the animals. "Man at the general store. Said Thomas Nolan's daughter was trying to run the place alone." His gaze moved past her to the partially completed fence, the sagging barn roof in the distance, the water pump that sat at an odd angle. "Looks like he was right." Pride flared hot in her chest. "I manage fine." "Didn't say you didn't." Xavier's voice was mild, no challenge in it. "Just offering help if you want it. I'm good with horses, can mend fence, fix most anything that's broken. I don't drink, I don't cause trouble, and I work hard." "I cannot pay much," Zara said bluntly. She had learned not to waste words. Room and board would be enough. Small wage if you can spare it. She wanted to say no. Accepting help felt like admitting defeat, like confessing she was not strong enough to honor her father's memory by keeping his ranch running. But the fence post stretched ahead of her in an endless line, and the barn roof would not fix itself, and she was so tired her bones felt hollow. "There's a bunkhouse," she heard herself say. "Needs cleaning out. I can give you $20 a month and meals. That's fair." Xavier dismounted in one smooth motion. "Want me to start now?" She nodded curtly, turning back to her work before he could see the relief in her eyes. She heard him lead his horse toward the barn, his boots crunching in the dry grass, and something in her chest loosened just slightly, though she would not have called it hope. Not yet. That first day, Xavier worked without speaking beyond what was necessary. He took the post-hole digger from her hands with a simple, "Let me," and set to work with a steady rhythm that ate up the distance she had been struggling with for days. Zara found herself working alongside him, unable to simply watch, her pride not quite ready to surrender even this much. They worked until the sun began its descent, painting the California hills gold and orange. Zara finally straightened, pressing a hand to her lower back. "Supper will be in an hour," she said. "Water pumps by the house. Bunkhouse is the small building past the barn." "Obliged," Xavier said. He had not complained once, had not made conversation or asked personal questions. Had not, she realized, asked for thanks or acknowledgement of any kind. She walked back to the ranch house, a modest structure her father had built with his own hands 20 years ago. Inside, she lit the stove and began preparing a simple meal of beans, salt pork, and cornbread. She found herself making more than she had been, enough for two, and the strangeness of it made her hands pause over the pot. When Xavier knocked on the door frame, she gestured him inside. He had cleaned up, his hair damp, his shirt changed for a cleaner one. He removed his hat and waited until she indicated the table. They ate in silence for several minutes. Then Xavier said quietly, "This is good, thank you." "It's plain food," Zara replied. "It's made with care." That's what matters. Something about the way he said it made her look up. His expression was serious, no flattery in it, just simple observation. She found she did not know how to respond, so she focused on her meal instead. As Xavier stood to leave, he paused at the door. "I noticed the barn roof's got some loose shingles. Could tackle that tomorrow if you'd like. Rain will come eventually, and you will want it sealed up tight." Zara nodded. After he left, she sat alone in the dimming light of the kitchen and felt the silence settle around her like it always did. But somehow it seemed less heavy than before. The next morning, she woke before dawn as always and found Xavier already in the barn, examining the structure by lantern light. She stopped in the doorway, coffee cup in hand, and watched him move along the walls, testing boards, checking joints. "You're up early," she said. He glanced over. "Old habit. My father always said the morning hours were the ones God gave you extra." "Your father was a rancher, among other things." Xavier set down the lantern. "He passed 2 years ago. Ranch went to my older brother. I decided to see some country, learn different ways of doing things." "I'm sorry about your father." "Thank you. I heard yours was recent. That's hard." Zara's throat tightened. People in town had said similar things, but their words had felt empty, obligatory. Xavier spoke with the weight of someone who understood. She cleared her throat. "I should check on the cattle. I'll come with you after I grab some coffee if that's all right. Want to see the full spread, get a sense of what needs doing." They rode out together as the sun broke over the eastern hills. Zara's cattle were scattered across the grazing land, about 80 head of mixed-breed stock. Not a large herd, but quality animals her father had been proud of. Xavier studied them with an experienced eye. "They look healthy," he said. "Good condition. My father knew cattle." Zara guided her mare along the fence line, checking for breaks. "He taught me everything. How to spot disease, which bulls to breed with which cows, when to move them to new grass. He taught you well." They found a section where the fence had come down, probably from a fallen branch during the last windstorm. Xavier dismounted and began examining the damage. "I'll need to ride back for tools and new wire." "I'll help," Zara said, already climbing down. "You have other things that need doing, I would imagine. I can handle this." She stiffened. "This is my ranch." Xavier looked at her directly then, his gray eyes calm. "I know that. I'm not trying to take anything from you. I'm just offering to handle one thing so you can handle another. There's more work here than 2 people can do in a day, let alone one. No shame in dividing it up." Zara felt her defenses waver. He was right, of course. She had been running herself ragged trying to do everything, refusing to admit she needed help even after accepting it. "The garden needs weeding," she said finally, "and I need to ride into town for supplies." "Then do that. I will be here when you get back." Something about that simple statement settled deep in her chest. He would be here. She did not have to do everything this very moment because someone else could be trusted to handle their share. The realization was both relief and terror. In town, Zara moved through her errands efficiently. The general store owner, Mr. Patterson, greeted her warmly. "Miss Nolan, heard you took on Xavier Barrett. He's a good man from what I have seen. Been in town about a week, asking after honest work. Turned down a job at the saloon. Said he was looking for ranch work specifically." "Why did you send him to me?" Zara asked as she selected her supplies. Patterson's weathered face creased with sympathy. "Because you needed help and you are too proud to ask for it. Your father was my friend. He would have wanted someone to look after you." "I can look after myself," Zara said automatically. "I know you can." "But that doesn't mean you should have to, not all alone." He tallied her purchases. "That'll be $3.20. I'll put it on your account." "No," Zara said firmly. "I pay cash." She had made a rule never to let the debts pile up. No matter how tired she was or how little remained in her father's strong box. On the ride back, she let herself think about Xavier. He had been true to his word so far. He worked hard, made no demands, and kept to himself unless there was something that needed discussing. He had not asked about her father's death, had not pried into her circumstances, had not made her feel like an object of pity. She found him working on the barn roof when she returned, moving carefully across the old shingles. He had already replaced a section, the new wood bright against the weathered gray. "Thought you were fixing fence," she called up. "Did that already. Had time for this too." He climbed down the ladder with easy confidence. "How was town?" "Fine." She began unloading her supplies. Xavier moved to help without asking, carrying the heavier sacks. They worked in companionable silence, and Zara realized this was becoming a pattern. The quiet between them was not awkward or demanding. It simply was. That evening she invited him to supper again, and again they ate without much conversation. But as Xavier stood to leave, he said, "I've been thinking about your water situation. That pump's on its last legs. I could take it apart, see if it's fixable, but you might need to consider a new one before winter." "That's expensive," Zara said. "I know, but hauling water from the creek all winter would be harder, just something to think about." He was right, and she knew it. The pump had been failing for months. "I'll think about it," she said. "That's all I'm asking." The days fell into a rhythm after that. They rose early, divided the work, and accomplished more together than Zara had managed alone in the 3 months since her father's death. The ranch began to look cared for again, the fences mended, the barn sound, the animals thriving. Xavier proved himself skilled at everything he touched. He could gentle a nervous horse, deliver a breached calf, fix machinery with intuitive understanding. But more than his skills, Zara found herself appreciating his presence. He did not fill the silence with meaningless chatter, but when he spoke, his words had substance. He noticed things, small details others would miss. He mentioned when the mare was favoring her left foreleg before the limp became obvious. He pointed out a hawk's nest in the old oak tree near the creek. He knew the names of the wildflowers that bloomed in unexpected places. 3 weeks after Xavier's arrival, a summer storm rolled through, violent and sudden. Thunder shook the house, and lightning split the sky like cracks in glass. Zara stood on her porch, watching the rain hammer down, and saw Xavier dash from the bunkhouse through the deluge. He was soaked by the time he reached her. "The cattle," he shouted over the thunder. "We need to move them away from the east pasture. Creek's going to flood." Zara did not question him. She grabbed her oilcloth coat and hat and ran with him to the barn. They saddled their horses quickly, hands fumbling with wet leather, and rode out into the storm. The cattle were already nervous, milling and lowing anxiously. Xavier took the far side while Zara pushed from the near, and together they drove the herd toward higher ground. Rain poured down in sheets, turning the world gray and indistinct. Lightning flashed, spooking the animals, making them scatter. Zara's mare slipped in the mud, nearly going down, but recovered with a lunge that left Zara's heart pounding. Xavier appeared beside her, his face streaming with water. "You all right?" "Yes. Keep pushing them up." It took an hour of hard, desperate work, but they got the herd to safety. By then, the creek had indeed swollen over its banks, churning brown and dangerous, right where the cattle had been grazing. Zara stared at the flood waters, breathing hard. "How did you know?" she asked. "Saw storms like this in Texas. The way the clouds build, the smell of the air. Creeks too close to that pasture. Your father probably knew to move them, but you haven't been through a storm season here yet." He was right. She had not thought about it, too focused on the daily survival tasks. The cattle would have been trapped, possibly drowned or injured. Xavier's experience had just saved her herd. They rode back to the barn in silence, exhausted and soaked. As they unsaddled the horses, Zara said quietly, "Thank you, for knowing, for acting." Xavier looked surprised, as if thanks was unexpected. "It's what needed doing." "Still, thank you," he nodded, and something passed between them in the dim barn light, some acknowledgement deeper than words. That night, Zara brought supper to the bunkhouse instead of calling Xavier to the main house. It seemed wrong to make him walk through the continuing rain. She knocked, and he opened the door, clearly surprised. "Thought you might want to eat here tonight," she said, holding up the covered dishes. "That's kind of you. Come in out of the rain." The bunkhouse was simple but clean. Xavier had made it his own with small touches. A book on the table, his saddle properly stored, his blankets neatly folded. They sat at the small table, and the intimacy of the space made Zara suddenly aware of things she had been ignoring. The way Xavier's wet shirt clung to his shoulders, the strong line of his jaw, the gentle way his hands moved, even when performing simple tasks. "I have been thinking," Xavier said, breaking into her thoughts, "about your father's ranch. You are doing a good job keeping it going, but have you thought about what you want long term? Do you want to keep ranching, or is this just until you figure out something else?" No one had asked her that. Everyone assumed she would keep the ranch because it was her inheritance, her duty. "I love this land," she said slowly. "My father built something here, and I don't want to lose it, but I'm also scared. Scared I'm not strong enough to do this alone." "You are stronger than you think," Xavier said. "Look what you accomplished before I got here. You kept the place running, kept the animals alive, did not give up. That takes real strength." "I was failing," Zara admitted. "The work was getting ahead of me if you hadn't come along. But I did, and maybe that's all right. Maybe asking for help isn't the same as failing." Zara looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not pity but respect, understanding. "Is that easy for you? Asking for help?" Xavier laughed, a warm sound that filled the small space. "Not even a little bit. I rode around for 2 years after my father died, too proud to go back to my brother's place, too stubborn to admit I needed roots somewhere. Finally realized that independence and isolation are not the same thing. What changed? I got tired, I guess. Tired of drifting. Tired of having no place that mattered. I wanted to belong somewhere again." He met her eyes. "This ranch, working here, it's the first time in 2 years I have felt like I'm building something instead of just passing through." Zara's heart beat faster. "You can stay," she said. "As long as you want. The ranch, it's better with you here." "So are you," Xavier said quietly, the words hung between them. Zara stood abruptly, suddenly overwhelmed. "I should let you eat. Get some rest." "Zara," Xavier said, and it was the first time he had used her given name. She stopped at the door, not turning around. "I meant what I said. You are doing better than just surviving. You are doing something worth doing and doing it well." She nodded, not trusting her voice, and slipped out into the rain, Over the following weeks, something shifted between them. The easy silence remained, but now there was an awareness beneath it, a current of something unspoken. Zara caught herself watching Xavier when he worked, noticing the capable way he moved, the patience he showed with the animals. She found excuses to work near him, choosing tasks that kept them in the same area. Xavier seemed to feel it too. His eyes would find her across the yard, and he would smile, small and private. He began lingering after supper, helping her wash dishes though she protested it was not necessary. They talked about small things: the price of cattle, the quality of the grass, whether they should plant winter wheat. But underneath, something else was growing, tender and tentative as new shoots after rain. One evening, as they stood together watching the sunset paint the hills purple and gold, Xavier said, "My brother wrote, offered me a partnership in his ranch, good money, secure future." Zara's stomach dropped. "What did you say?" "I haven't answered yet." He turned to look at her. "I wanted to know if there was a reason to stay here." She could not breathe, could not think beyond the sudden fear of losing him, just when she was beginning to understand what his presence meant. "The ranch needs you," she said. "I'm not asking about the ranch." Zara looked at him, at his honest gray eyes and serious face, and felt something crack open inside her. "I need you," she whispered. "I didn't want to. I told myself I could do everything alone. But the truth is, I don't want to anymore. These weeks, working with you, I've been happier than I've been since my father died. And it's not just the help with the work, it's you." Xavier stepped closer. "I stayed because of the work at first, good honest labor for fair pay. But somewhere along the way that changed. I stayed because I wanted to see you every morning. Because your determination amazed me. Because when you smile, which you don't do nearly enough, it lights up everything around you." "I don't know how to do this," Zara admitted. "Let someone close, trust that they will stay." "I don't know either," Xavier said. "But I would like to figure it out with you if you are willing." She reached for his hand, her work-roughened fingers lacing with his. "I'm willing." He raised her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "Then I'm staying. I will write my brother and thank him, but tell him my place is here." "Your place," Zara repeated. "I like the sound of that." They stood together as the stars emerged, still holding hands, and Zara felt something she had not felt in a long time: hope. Not the desperate kind that came from wishing circumstances would change, but the solid kind that came from standing beside someone who chose to stay. The summer deepened into August heat that shimmered off the dry ground. Zara and Xavier worked in the relative cool of early mornings and late evenings, resting during the worst of the afternoon. They often spent those midday hours on the porch, talking about everything and nothing. Xavier told her about growing up in Texas, about his mother who had died when he was 12, about learning to break horses from a Mexican vaquero who worked for his father. Zara told him about her mother, who she barely remembered, about her father's dream of building a ranch that would last generations. They shared their fears and hopes, their failures and small triumphs, building between them a foundation deeper than attraction. One afternoon, as they sat in the porch shade, Xavier said, "I've been thinking about the water pump situation. I have some money saved. I could buy the new pump and you could pay me back over time." "I cannot ask you to do that," Zara said immediately. "You are not asking, I'm offering. This ranch, it matters to me now too. I want to see it thrive." He paused. "And I don't like seeing you worry about it." Zara looked at him, at the genuine concern in his face. "Why do you never ask for thanks? For anything you do?" Xavier seemed to consider the question. "I guess because I'm not doing it for thanks. I'm doing it because it needs doing, and because helping you, being here, it makes me feel like I have purpose again. That's worth more than gratitude." "You have it anyway," Zara said softly. my gratitude, my respect, my—" She trailed off, not quite brave enough to finish. "Your what?" Xavier asked gently. "My affection," she managed. "More than affection, if I'm being honest." Xavier's face transformed with a smile that made her heart race. "I love you, Zara Nolan. I've been trying to find the right time to say it, but I don't think there is a right time. I just know it's true." Tears pricked her eyes. "I love you too. I didn't want to. It scared me, but I do." He kissed her then, soft and careful, as if she were something precious. When they pulled apart, Zara was shaking, overwhelmed by the force of what she felt. "We should probably talk about what this means," Xavier said, still holding her close. "It means you are not sleeping in the bunkhouse anymore," Zara suggested, surprising herself with her boldness. Xavier laughed, the sound full of joy. "Is that a proposal, Miss Nolan?" "Maybe it is. We don't need a fancy wedding. Just the preacher in town and whatever witnesses he requires. I want you here properly as my husband. Is that too forward?" "It's perfect," Xavier said. "But are you sure? We've only known each other a few months. I've learned more about your character in these months than I could in years of formal courting. You work hard, you're honest, you treat me as an equal, and you make me want to believe in the future again. That's enough for me." "Then yes," Xavier said. "Yes to all of it." "When?" "Next week. That gives us time to arrange things, but not so much time I lose my nerve." They rode into Watsonville 3 days later, dressed in their best clothes. The town preacher, Reverend Mills, agreed to marry them that very afternoon. Mr. Patterson and his wife served as witnesses, both beaming with delight at the news. The ceremony was simple, held in the small church with sunlight streaming through plain glass windows. Xavier's voice was steady as he spoke his vows, and Zara's only trembled slightly. When Reverend Mills pronounced them man and wife, Xavier kissed her with a tenderness that made her forget they had an audience. Mrs. Patterson wiped her eyes, and Mr. Patterson clapped Xavier on the shoulder with genuine warmth. They returned to the ranch as husband and wife, the title still strange on Zara's tongue. That night, Xavier moved his few belongings from the bunkhouse to the main house, and they navigated the newness of sharing space as more than employer and worker, more than friends. Xavier was patient and gentle, letting Zara set the pace of their physical intimacy. They lay together in the darkness, talking quietly about their plans for the ranch, for their life together. When they finally came together, it was with mutual tenderness and a passion that left Zara breathless, understanding for the first time what it meant to be truly joined with another person. The autumn brought cooler weather and harvest work. Together, Zara and Xavier prepared the ranch for winter. They cut and stored hay, reinforced the barn against coming storms, and moved the cattle to the winter pastures. Xavier installed the new water pump, and Zara insisted on paying him back from the ranch funds, wanting their partnership to be fair. They worked dawn to dusk most days, but now they worked side by side, sharing the burden and the satisfaction of a job well done. In the evenings, they would sit together, Zara leaning against Xavier's chest, his arms around her, and talk about the future. "I would like to expand the herd next year," Xavier said one night. "We have the grazing land for more cattle and the prices are good right now." "That would mean hiring on another hand come spring," Zara said thoughtfully. "Can we afford it? If we are careful through winter, yes. And it would mean you could focus on other things too. I noticed you eyeing that fallow field west of the house, thinking about planting, maybe vegetables, enough to sell in town, bring in some extra income. My father always meant to do it but never had time." "We'll make time," Xavier promised. "We'll build this place into something amazing together." Zara twisted in his arms to look at him. "I never thought I would be this happy. When my father died, I felt like all the light had gone out of the world." And then you showed up, this quiet cowboy who just started fixing things without being asked, and somehow you fixed me too. You weren't broken, Xavier said. You were grieving and overwhelmed. There's a difference. Either way, you helped me find my way back. To the ranch, to myself, to the possibility of joy again. They kissed, and the gentleness between them had become familiar now, comfortable, though no less powerful for it. Zara marveled at how natural it felt to be his wife, to share her life with him. The loneliness that had defined her existence after her father's death was gone, replaced by partnership and love. Winter came with rain that turned the hills green and filled the creek to rushing abundance. The new pump worked perfectly, providing water even through the coldest days. Xavier spent the short afternoons working on small projects, building Zara a new kitchen cabinet, repairing her father's old rocking chair, carving small wooden figures by the fire. Zara took up the sewing she had neglected for months, making new curtains for the house, mending clothes that had gone ragged. She also began sketching plans for the spring garden, researching what vegetables would grow well in their climate, calculating potential profits. They celebrated Christmas quietly, just the two of them, exchanging simple gifts. Xavier gave Zara a beautiful leather-bound journal for recording ranch business and her personal thoughts. She gave him a new hat she had saved for, better quality than his worn one, and a hand-knitted scarf in deep blue. "This is the best Christmas I've had in years," Xavier said, pulling her close by the fire. "Thank you for taking a chance on me." "Thank you for staying," Zara replied. "For choosing this life, this ranch, me. Easiest choice I ever made." As winter progressed, Zara began to suspect she might be pregnant. She waited until she was certain before telling Xavier, nervous about his reaction. They had not specifically talked about children, though she assumed they both wanted them eventually. She chose a quiet evening after supper, as they sat together working on their individual projects. "Xavier, I have something to tell you." He looked up from the bridle he was mending, immediately attentive. "What is it?" "I'm fairly certain I'm expecting a baby, probably due sometime in late summer." For a moment, Xavier just stared at her, then his face broke into the widest smile she had ever seen. He set aside his work and crossed to her, pulling her up and into his arms. "Are you sure?" "As sure as I can be without seeing a doctor. All the signs are there." "A baby," Xavier said wonderingly. He placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "Our baby. Are you happy about it?" Zara asked, needing to hear him say it. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. Thrilled, amazed, a little terrified, but mostly just overwhelmed with joy. He kissed her forehead. "We're going to be parents." "You'll be a wonderful father," Zara said. "I've seen how you are with the animals, how patient and kind. You'll be that way with our child. And you'll be an amazing mother, strong and loving and determined to give them the best life possible." They held each other, contemplating this new development, this new life growing between them. Zara felt a contentment so complete it brought tears to her eyes. A year ago, she had been alone and struggling, convinced she would lose everything. Now she had a husband she loved, a ranch that was thriving, and a baby on the way. Life had given her more than she had dared hope for. Spring came with wildflowers and new calves. Zara's pregnancy became obvious, her body changing in ways that amazed and occasionally frustrated her. Xavier was protective without being overbearing, taking on more of the heavy work, but never making her feel useless or fragile. They hired a young man named Daniel to help with the spring work. He was 18, eager to learn and respectful of Zara despite her gender and her obvious pregnancy. With 3 sets of hands, the ranch work became manageable, and Zara was able to start her garden as planned. She worked the soil carefully, planting rows of vegetables under Xavier's watchful eye. He helped her build raised beds that were easier on her back, and Daniel dug an irrigation channel from the creek. By early summer, they had tomatoes, beans, squash, and a variety of other crops growing abundantly. "This was a good idea," Xavier said, surveying the lush garden. "We'll make good money from this in town." "And have better meals ourselves," Zara added. She placed a hand on her swelling belly, feeling the baby kick. "Our child will grow up with fresh vegetables and open land. A good life." "The best life," Xavier agreed. He pulled her close, mindful of her belly between them. "I keep thinking about how different things might have been. If Mr. Patterson hadn't suggested I ride out here, if you had turned me away." "I almost did," Zara admitted. "I was so determined to do everything alone." "I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you gave me a chance. I'm glad you took it. That you stayed even though I was prickly and proud and probably difficult to work with at first." Xavier laughed. "You were all those things, but I saw past it to who you really were, someone brave and capable who just needed a partner, not a savior." "That's exactly what I needed," Zara said. "What I still need. Thank you for understanding the difference." As summer deepened, Zara's pregnancy advanced. The doctor in Watsonville examined her and pronounced everything healthy and normal. "The baby should arrive in August," he said, "during the hottest part of the year." Mrs. Patterson volunteered to serve as midwife when the time came, having helped deliver dozens of babies over the years. Zara prepared as best she could, sewing baby clothes from soft cloth, readying a cradle Xavier had built with his own hands. Xavier read everything he could find about childbirth and newborn care, determined to be useful rather than one of those husbands who fainted at the sight of blood. The baby came on a sweltering August afternoon, 3 days after Zara's 24th birthday. The labor was long and hard, lasting through the night and into the next day. Xavier stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her face with cool cloths, murmuring encouragement when she was certain she could not continue. Mrs. Patterson was calm and capable, guiding Zara through each stage. And finally, as the afternoon sun slanted through the bedroom windows, their son was born, squalling and red-faced and perfect. "A boy," Mrs. Patterson announced, placing the cleaned and wrapped infant in Zara's arms. "A healthy, strong boy." Zara looked down at her son, at his tiny face and waving fists, and felt love slam into her with the force of a stampede. Xavier sat beside her on the bed, his arm around her shoulders, staring at their child with wonder. "He's beautiful," Xavier whispered. "He's perfect." "What should we name him?" Zara asked. They had discussed names but never settled on one. Xavier was quiet for a moment, then he said, "What about Thomas, after your father? He'd be proud to know his grandson carried his name." Tears filled Zara's eyes. "Thomas Xavier Barrett, it's perfect." They spent the next hour just holding their son, marveling at his tiny fingers and toes, his soft dark hair, the way he looked at them with unfocused eyes. Mrs. Patterson cleaned up and made sure Zara was comfortable before leaving with promises to return the next day. That night, Xavier held Thomas while Zara rested. She watched them in the lamplight, her strong husband cradling their impossibly small son with infinite gentleness, and felt her heart expand even further. This was family. This was home. This was everything she had never dared dream she could have. The weeks after Thomas's birth were exhausting and exhilarating. The baby demanded constant attention, feeding every few hours, needing to be changed and soothed and held. Xavier threw himself into fatherhood with the same dedication he brought to ranch work. He walked the floor at night when Thomas fussed, changed diapers without complaint, and looked at his son with such transparent adoration that Zara sometimes had to look away from the intensity of it. Daniel and a second hired hand, an older man named George, kept the ranch running while Zara recovered and adjusted to motherhood. Xavier divided his time between the house and the ranch work, somehow managing both. Zara watched him become more confident as a father, watched him learn Thomas's different cries, the way he liked to be held, the songs that soothed him. 3 months after Thomas's birth, as autumn painted the hills gold and red, Zara stood on the porch watching Xavier in the yard. He had Thomas strapped to his chest in a sling Zara had made, the baby sleeping peacefully as Xavier went about his work. The sight made her smile. She thought about the woman she had been a year and a half ago, alone and exhausted and convinced she had to carry every burden herself. She thought about the morning Xavier had ridden up, offering help without knowing if she would accept it. She thought about all the moments since then, working side by side, falling in love, building a life together. Xavier looked up and caught her watching. He smiled and walked over, careful not to jostle the sleeping baby. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything," Zara said. "How much has changed, how different my life is now." "Better different, I hope. So much better." She touched Thomas's tiny hand where it rested against Xavier's chest. "I was just remembering when you first arrived, how you worked all day without asking for anything in return, how you never demanded thanks or recognition. You just did what needed doing." "That hasn't changed," Xavier said. "I still don't do this for thanks. I do it because I love you and Thomas. Because this ranch is ours now, all of us together. Because building something with you is the most meaningful thing I've ever done." "You have my thanks anyway," Zara said. "For everything. For staying, for loving me, for being the partner I needed even when I didn't know I needed one. For giving me this." She gestured to encompass everything, the ranch, the baby, the life they had built. Xavier kissed her softly. "Thank you for letting me stay, for trusting me, for loving me back." Thomas stirred and made a small sound. They both looked down at him, this perfect combination of the two of them, this promise of the future. Zara leaned against Xavier's side, his free arm coming around her, and they stood together in the autumn sunlight, a family. The years that followed were full of both challenges and joys. They expanded the herd as planned, and Zara's garden became well known in Watsonville, her vegetables prized for their quality. The ranch prospered under their joint management, earning a reputation for good stock and honest dealing. Thomas grew into a lively, curious child who toddled after his father whenever possible. Xavier taught him to be gentle with animals, to respect the land, to work hard and find satisfaction in a job well done. Zara taught him letters and numbers, read to him from the books she ordered from San Francisco, filled his head with stories and dreams. When Thomas was 3, Zara became pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy felt easier, perhaps because she knew what to expect, or perhaps because she was not simultaneously trying to run a ranch alone. Their daughter was born in the spring, an easy birth compared to Thomas's, and they named her Zara Barrett. Zara was a peaceful baby, content to watch the world with serious dark eyes. Thomas was fascinated by his little sister, wanting to help with everything. Xavier balanced both children with patient good humor, bouncing Zara while helping Thomas with some task, reading bedtime stories with a child on each knee. Zara watched her family grow and felt profound gratitude. She remembered her father's dream of building something that would last generations. With Xavier beside her and their children playing in the yard, she knew they were fulfilling that dream and building one of their own. The ranch continued to prosper. They built a new, larger barn and expanded the house, adding rooms for the growing family. They hired more permanent hands, men who stayed season after season, becoming part of the ranch's extended family. George remained with them until his retirement, when they helped him buy a small house in town. Daniel eventually married a girl from Watsonville and started his own small ranch nearby, but he often brought his family to visit. When Thomas was 8 and Sarah was 5, the family took a trip to San Francisco. It was Thomas's first time seeing a real city, and his excitement was contagious. They stayed in a modest hotel, visited the docks, saw ships from all over the world. Xavier held Sarah's hand as they walked the crowded streets, while Thomas pressed his nose against shop windows, amazed by everything. On their last evening, they stood on a hill overlooking the bay, watching the sun set over the Pacific. "It's beautiful," Zara said, "but I'm ready to go home." "Me too," Xavier agreed. "Cities are fine for visiting, but the ranch is where we belong." "I like the ranch better too," Sarah piped up. "The city is too loud." Thomas nodded agreement, though Zara suspected he would have stayed exploring for weeks if allowed. But even her adventurous son understood what home meant, where their roots went deep. They returned to find everything running smoothly under the management of their foreman, a capable man named Frank who had been with them for 3 years. The cattle were healthy, the crops thriving, and it felt good to be back. That night, after the children were asleep, Xavier and Zara sat on their porch as they had done countless times before. "Do you ever regret it?" Zara asked. "Choosing this life instead of taking your brother's offer?" "Never," Xavier said without hesitation. "Not for a single moment. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. With you, with our children on this land. What about you? Do you regret letting a strange cowboy ride onto your property all those years ago?" Zara laughed. "It's the best decision I ever made. Well, that and marrying you a few months later." "We moved fast," Xavier acknowledged. "But it was right. I knew it then, and I know it even more certainly now." They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands, listening to the night sounds of the ranch. Somewhere in the barn, a horse nickered softly. Crickets sang in the grass. A gentle breeze carried the scent of honeysuckle from the vine Zara had planted by the porch. "I love our life," Zara said quietly. "I love that we built it together, that neither of us had to do it alone." "That's what partnership is," Xavier said. "Facing everything together, good and bad, and knowing you don't have to carry the weight alone." More years passed, marked by the rhythms of ranch life and the milestones of their children's growth. Thomas showed talent with horses, able to gentle even the most skittish animals with patience and intuition. Sarah surprised them by displaying a head for numbers, keeping careful track of the ranch's accounts and suggesting improvements to their systems. When Thomas turned 16, Xavier gave him increased responsibility, treating him as a junior partner. Thomas rose to the challenge, working dawn to dusk just as his parents had always done. Sarah, at 13, took over management of the expanded garden operation, which now included a small orchard and berry patches. Zara and Xavier were in their late 30s now, still vital and active but occasionally feeling the aches of years of hard work. They hired more help, allowing themselves occasional rest, though neither could truly relax until the day's work was done. It was simply who they were. One evening, as they celebrated Thomas's 17th birthday with a family dinner, Zara looked around the table and felt overwhelmed with love. Her son, tall and strong and good-hearted. Her daughter, quick and capable and full of laughter. Her husband, gray threading through his dark hair now, his face lined with years of sun and work and smiling, still the steady presence that had transformed her life. "I want to say something," Zara announced, tapping her glass for attention. Everyone looked at her expectantly. 17 years ago, your father rode onto this ranch looking for work. I was alone, struggling, too proud to admit I needed help. He worked dawn to dusk, never asking for thanks, just doing what needed doing. He saved this ranch and he saved me. Xavier started to protest, but Zara held up her hand. Let me finish. You taught me that accepting help isn't weakness. That partnership is stronger than solitary struggle. That love is about showing up every day and doing the work, not grand gestures or pretty words. You taught our children the same lessons. And because of you, because you stopped here that day instead of riding past, we have all of this. She gestured to encompass the family, the home, everything they had built. I was lost when I found you, Xavier said. Drifting, looking for purpose. You gave me that purpose. You gave me everything. Thomas cleared his throat, clearly moved. I hope someday I can build something like what you two have, a real partnership based on respect and hard work and love. You will, Zara assured him. You have learned well. We both have, Sarah added, reaching for her brother's hand. You've shown us what a good marriage looks like. How to be partners, not just in business but in everything. The evening continued with laughter and stories, the family sharing memories and making plans for the future. Later, after the children had gone to bed, Zara and Xavier walked out to the barn to check on a mare that was close to foaling. The mare was resting comfortably, not ready yet. Xavier and Zara leaned against the stall door watching her in the lantern light. Do you remember the storm? Zara asked. When you knew to move the cattle before the creek flooded, of course. You thanked me that day. It was one of the first times you let your guard down. I was so determined to do everything myself, so convinced that needing help meant I had failed. You were hurting and scared. Understandable. You were patient with me. You never pushed, never demanded. You just kept showing up, doing the work, being there. Eventually, I couldn't help but see what was right in front of me. Xavier pulled her close. I saw it too. Saw you, really saw you, and fell in love with your strength and your stubbornness and your determination to honor your father's legacy. We did honor it, Zara said. We built something even better than what he started, not just a working ranch but a real home, a family. We did, Xavier agreed. Together. The mare shifted in her stall and they checked on her once more before heading back to the house. The ranch was quiet in the darkness, peaceful and prosperous, a testament to years of shared work and shared dreams. In bed, Zara nestled against Xavier's familiar warmth. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For everything. For staying, for loving me, for being exactly who you are. You never have to thank me, Xavier said, as he had said countless times over the years. But I appreciate hearing it anyway. They fell asleep holding each other as they had done for nearly 2 decades, partners in every sense of the word. More years flowed past like water in the creek, sometimes rushing, sometimes slow, but always moving forward. Thomas married at 21, a smart young woman named Clara who shared his love of horses. They built a house on the eastern section of the property, close enough to be part of the ranch but far enough for privacy. Within 2 years, they made Zara and Xavier grandparents, a baby boy they named James. Sarah showed no interest in marriage, focused instead on expanding the ranch's business interests. She began breeding chickens, selling eggs and birds throughout the county. She corresponded with agricultural colleges, implementing new techniques that increased their yields. Xavier called her his secret weapon, the one who kept them ahead of the curve. The ranch employed a dozen people now, a small community unto itself. Zara and Xavier had built a reputation for fair treatment and good wages, so they never lacked for workers when needed. Several of the hands had been with them for over a decade, loyal and skilled. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Xavier surprised Zara with a trip back to the spot where they had first met, the eastern pasture where she had been struggling with fence posts the day he rode up. The fence was sturdy now, well maintained, part of a ranch that had grown far beyond what either of them had imagined that day. 20 years, Zara said, looking out over the land. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Other times it feels like we've always been together. I can barely remember what my life was like before you, Xavier admitted. Lonely, I guess. Empty. Just going through motions without real purpose. I was the same. I thought keeping the ranch running was enough purpose. I didn't understand what I was missing until you showed me. Xavier took her hand, studying her face with the same intensity he always had. She was 43 now, threads of silver in her dark hair, lines around her eyes from years of squinting into the sun. He thought she was more beautiful than ever, her beauty now earned through years of living and loving and building something meaningful. I would do it all again, he said. Every hard day, every challenge, every moment of doubt, I would do it all exactly the same because it led here to us. So would I, Zara said. She kissed him, long and sweet, there in the open air where their story had begun. I love you, Xavier Barrett. Thank you for riding onto my property all those years ago. Thank you for staying. Thank you for letting me, Xavier replied. For seeing past your pride and your fear, and taking a chance on a drifting cowboy who needed a place to belong. They stood together in the afternoon sunlight, two people who had found each other when they both needed it most, who had built a life of purpose and partnership and deep, abiding love. The ranch stretched around them, prosperous and thriving, a testament to what could be accomplished when two people worked side by side, sharing burdens and dreams. As they walked back toward the house, Zara said, "Do you think our story is finished? Or are there more chapters to come?" "There are always more chapters," Xavier said. "Watching our grandchildren grow, seeing what Sarah builds, growing old together, that's not an ending, that's just more life." "Good," Zara said, leaning into his side. "I'm not ready for it to end. I want decades more of this, of us." "You'll have them," Xavier promised. "We both will." And they did. They watched their family continue to grow and flourish. Thomas and Clara had 3 more children. Sarah eventually married at 30, a rancher's son from the next county, and they built their own spread while still managing her portion of the family business. More grandchildren arrived, filling the ranch with noise and laughter and new life. Zara and Xavier gradually stepped back from daily operations, trusting their children and the capable foremen they had trained. But they never fully retired, always finding something useful to do, some way to contribute. They spent their mornings together, drinking coffee on the porch they had rebuilt twice over the years. They took long rides through the property, checking on things, reminiscing about the early days when it had been just the two of them against the world. On their 30th anniversary, the entire family gathered for a celebration. Children and grandchildren filled the house and yard, 3 generations of Barretts united by the legacy Zara and Xavier had built. There were speeches and toasts, laughter and music, and through it all, Zara and Xavier sat together, holding hands, watching the fruit of their love and labor. Thomas stood to speak, his eldest son on his knee. "My parents taught me what real partnership looks like. Not just in marriage, though they have a great one, but in everything. They showed me that asking for help is strength, not weakness. That working together, you can accomplish things impossible alone. That love is not just a feeling but a choice you make every single day to show up and do the work and be present for the people you care about." Clara nodded agreement. "They welcomed me into this family with open arms. They treated me as a daughter from day one, shared their wisdom, supported our dreams. This ranch, this family, it's all built on the foundation they laid." Sarah stood next, her husband beside her. "Dad rode onto this property offering help, and Mom was brave enough to accept it even though it scared her. From that single decision came all of this. She swept her arm to encompass everyone present. Every person here exists because they chose partnership over solitude, because they chose love. The children began clamoring for the story, as they always did. "Tell us about when Grandpa first came to the ranch," James called out. "Tell us about the fence posts." Zara and Xavier exchanged a smile. They had told this story countless times, but it never got old. Xavier began, his voice carrying across the gathering. "I had been drifting for 2 years, looking for a place to belong. I heard in town that a woman was trying to run a ranch alone, and something told me to ride out and offer my help." Zara picked up the narrative. "I was so stubborn, so convinced I had to do everything myself. But I was failing, and I knew it. When this cowboy rode up, quiet and respectful, offering help without expecting anything in return, something in me recognized I could trust him." They wove the story together as they had woven their life together, each adding details, finishing each other's thoughts, laughing at memories. The family listened, rapt, even though they had heard it all before. It was the foundation story, the beginning of everything they knew. When the story ended, as it always did, with their wedding in the little church in Watsonville, the whole family cheered. The grandchildren rushed forward for hugs, and Zara and Xavier found themselves surrounded by love, literally and figuratively. That night, after everyone had left or gone to bed in various rooms throughout the house, Zara and Xavier sat on their porch one more time. They were both in their 50s now, gray-haired and worn but still strong, still vital, still deeply in love. 30 years, Zara said wonderingly. "How did it go so fast?" "I don't know," Xavier said, "but I wouldn't change a moment of it. Not even the hard times, the drought in '93, when Thomas broke his arm, when we lost that whole section of fence in the winter storm, especially not those times," Xavier said. "Those are the times that proved what we have. When things got hard, we faced them together. We never blamed each other, never gave up, never stopped being partners. That's what made it all worthwhile." Zara turned to look at him in the lamplight. "I never properly thanked you, did I? All those times you said I didn't have to thank you, and I took you at your word. But you should know. Everything I have, everything I am, it's because you rode onto this ranch and stayed. You saved my life in every way a person can be saved." "Zara," Xavier said softly, "you saved me too. I was lost before I found you. You gave me purpose, family, love, a reason to put down roots and build something lasting. We saved each other." "I like that better," Zara agreed. "Not one of us rescuing the other, but both of us choosing to face life together. Partners." "Always partners," Xavier confirmed. "From that first day until my last breath, partners in everything." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the familiar night sounds. The ranch was quiet, peaceful, successful beyond their early dreams. They had built something real and lasting, not just in property and business, but in family and love and the bonds they had forged. "You have any regrets?" Zara asked. Xavier considered. "I regret the time I wasted before I found you. Those 2 years of drifting. I wish I had come here sooner. But if you had come sooner, I might not have been ready to accept your help. Everything happened when it was supposed to happen." "You're right. So no real regrets." "None," Zara said firmly. "I have lived a full, rich life. I have loved deeply and been loved in return. I have children who make me proud, grandchildren who bring me joy, a legacy that will outlast me. I have this ranch, this home, this life we built together. How could I regret any of that?" "You couldn't," Xavier said. He stood and offered her his hand. "Come on, Mrs. Barrett, let's go to bed. Morning will come early and there's always work to be done." Zara took his hand, letting him pull her to her feet. They had stood like this countless times, his hand in hers, pulling her forward into the next moment, the next day, the next chapter of their shared life. "There's always work to be done," she agreed. "But with you beside me, it never feels like burden." "That's the secret," Xavier said as they walked inside together. "Everything is easier when you don't have to do it alone." They continued on for years more, watching their family grow, their legacy expand. They saw great-grandchildren born, saw the ranch pass into the capable hands of the next generation. They celebrated 50 years of marriage surrounded by dozens of family members, all of them testament to the love story that had begun with a simple offer of help and a brave acceptance of it. When Xavier passed away at the age of 72, he died as he had lived, quietly and without fanfare, slipping away in his sleep with Zara beside him. She held his hand as his breathing slowed and stopped, and though grief threatened to overwhelm her, she was also grateful. Grateful for every day they had shared, every moment of partnership and love, every hardship faced together and every triumph celebrated side by side. She lived 3 more years without him, still sharp and capable despite her grief. She spent her time with family, telling stories about Xavier and their early days together, ensuring his memory stayed vivid and real. She watched the ranch continue to prosper under Thomas and Sarah's joint management, saw her grandchildren begin having children of their own. On a warm summer afternoon, Zara sat on her porch for the last time. She was 76, tired in a way that went bone deep, but content. She looked out over the land she and Xavier had built together and saw not just property but love made visible, partnership made permanent. Her children and grandchildren gathered around her that evening. She told them the story one more time, about the cowboy who had ridden onto her property offering help, who had never asked for thanks, who had stayed and loved her and built a life with her that had blessed generations. "Remember," she told them, her voice weak but clear. "Remember that accepting help is not weakness. That partnership is stronger than solitude. That love is showing up every day and doing the work. Your grandfather taught me that, and together we tried to teach all of you. Pass it on. Tell your children and your children's children. Tell them about the ranch, about family, about love that lasts." She passed away that night, peacefully, surrounded by family. They buried her beside Xavier on a hill overlooking the ranch. 2 simple headstones marking the graves of people who had lived extraordinary, ordinary lives. The ranch continued on, passed down through the generations, each one adding their own chapter to the ongoing story. But it all traced back to that June day in 1882, when a stubborn woman working alone accepted help from a quiet cowboy who never asked for thanks. And together, they built something that lasted far beyond their individual lifetimes. Their great-great-grandchildren still worked the land, still told the story of Zara and Xavier, still lived by the principles of partnership and hard work, and showing up every day to do what needed doing. The ranch house had been expanded and modernized, but the original structure remained at its heart, a testimony to where it all began. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, family members swore they could feel the presence of those 2 original Barrett ranchers, still watching over the land they had loved, still together as they had always been, partners in this life and whatever came after. The story of Zara and Xavier became family legend, told and retold, embellished perhaps, but never losing its essential truth. That love is built through daily choices, through showing up and doing the work, through partnership and respect and the willingness to accept help when it is offered in good faith. That a single decision, to offer help or to accept it, can change the course of lives and echo through generations. The ranch they built together stood as monument to what 2 people could accomplish when they worked side by side, sharing burdens and dreams, neither trying to do it all alone. It stood as testament to love that lasted, partnership that endured, and the simple truth that showing up every single day without asking for thanks or recognition was its own reward. Their story was complete, a circle closed, a life fully lived. From that first meeting to their last breaths, they had been partners, lovers, friends, builders of something greater than themselves. They had taken raw land and hard times and turned it into prosperity and family and love that lasted generations. They had shown that accepting help was strength, that partnership was sacred, that love was proved through action more than words, and in the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything that mattered. Two people who found each other when they both needed it most, who chose partnership over solitude, who built a life and a legacy together through hard work and deep love and the daily decision to show up for each other. That was the story of Zara and Xavier Barrett, and it was a story worth telling, worth remembering, worth passing down through the generations as an example of what love and partnership could accomplish when given the chance to flourish.